brought to you by Bethel School of Technology. Learn more at betheltech.net/Ken Coleman. MoneyWise article here. 46% of U.S. middle-class workers are now slashing or completely cutting out contributions to their retirement funds. Let's first dive into that. Now, what do you say? Because at Ramsey Solutions, we'll tell somebody if they're in debt, we'll tell them to pause. But that's a temporary situation, not a complete slashing. Is this another sign? 46% of middle-class workers slash. Is it just saying they're cutting it too tight? Inflation's too high? And can we really blame inflation here, or aren't we the problem?
Well, they're citing inflation as the main reason, which, is it's getting weaker of an excuse. As time goes on, as inflation cools, at some point we have to go, no, you made the choice to purchase a $60,000 car with a loan with a crazy interest rate. You made the choice to purchase more house than you could afford. And so it's easy to point the fingers at inflation and the Fed and it's everyone else's problem. But at some point we got to go, what am I going to do about this? And that's where I look at their debt more than I do the rate of inflation. And that's almost half. Almost half of people are saying, I'm going to opt out of the opportunity costs we talked about with compound growth.
Well, this is half of the middle class. So this is an important distinction because we hear a lot about class warfare in election years. We hear a lot about class warfare in general if you're paying attention to political conversations. But what's interesting is that that's always kind of a socioeconomic label as if it's a sticker. And I think the very thing that you're talking about, financial discipline, would allow someone to move from middle class to upper class, the decisions that they make. And there's the irony in all of this, and it could be very unpopular right now. But the reality is that you can get yourself out of the middle class by reducing expenses, which creates more margin in your life, and then doing the things that it takes to actually make more money and allow it to stay around. Not just make more money, spend more money. And so at some point, George, I believe, tell me what you think about this, I believe the difference between upper class and middle class is not income. I think it's the mindset about money, period.
Well, when you think about assets versus liabilities, the upper class is generally more, invested. They're putting money into assets, things that have value, things that hold their value, things that grow in value. The middle class, what do we think of? We think of the guy driving the truck with payments that he can't afford, with a car that's going down in value, putting things on the credit card with interest. And what we found is broke people tend to pay interest, wealthy people tend to earn interest. That, I think, is what separates those. And when it comes to the middle class, most of America, when you look at lower middle class to upper middle class, that pretty much sums it up from a percentage. There's very few people who are on the poverty line and super, super uber rich. Most of us are all in that range. We found that people making six figures, half of them said they live paycheck to paycheck. And so I think you're right. I don't think it's just an income problem, because it's not like the more money you make, the better chance you have at retiring. The more money you make, the more chance there is you're going to inflate your lifestyle and have lifestyle creep, step in to where you go, well, my expenses are now $8,000, $9,000, $10,000, $12,000 a month. And no wonder you can't save for retirement. Yeah. So you have to make this a priority, and you've got to limit your lifestyle.
I think the problem is the American dream is a little bit more accessible than it should be.
Can you explain that? I like that. I like where you're going with this.
I think that buying a house, owning a nice car, somewhat equates to a lot of people the American dream. So then they go get it, but they can barely afford it. In other words, that's how you get that data you just cited. You have six-figure earners living paycheck to paycheck because they have too many payments.
Well, what's happening is that
they can afford it in their minds.
Afford the payments.
But they can't afford it in reality to what it does to them. So my point is the American dream is a little too accessible, and it's not really the dream. The American dream as it is cited is just about freedom to kind of go live your life. But now it's become about stuff. I say all that to say you come from an immigrant family. And I think you can speak to this. Your parents from the Middle East. Is there a different mindset from the immigrant who comes to America than the average American that we're talking about who comes up, and they may not come from wealth? Maybe they're middle class or lower middle class, but they see the car commercials, right? They see, I can get a home. I just wonder if that immigrant attitude isn't what we all need. I'm curious. Am I wrong? Am I right? Am I onto something?
Well, I think the thread there with most immigrant families that I've seen is work ethic and frugality. Now, you do find those that adapt to the American culture and they go all in and they go, I want this abundance and I want this wealth and I want to shortcut it to where I'm going to take out all these loans. But by and large, what you find is those communities and those cultures, they tend to prioritize saving for a rainy day. They tend to prioritize building wealth and leaving a legacy and thinking about a bigger picture for their family. And I think that's why, you see cultures prioritize education, for example, to go, you know what, I want to have a good career. You rarely find, immigrant families push, to have their kids go be a whatever underwater basket weaver. There's a reason their stereotype exists of you got to be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer. That's how it was in my culture. Everyone around me, my whole family, I got a bunch of nurses, nurse practitioners, doctors, engineers. Those are the people I grew up with. I was the black sheep for going a different route. But I think that speaks to the fact that the more income you have and the better things you do with it, the better off you're going to be, and the more you can take care of your family and the ones that come after you and your aging parents, which again, in different cultures, the parents are moving back in with you later on in life, and you better be prepared for it.
So there's a built-in pressure to save.
Exactly.
And there's also a sense of we're not here for the shiny stuff, we're here for the freedom stuff.
And they have no one to impress.
Yeah.
Think about that.
They're
aiming for a better life for themselves. They don't really care what, Joey, the coworker, thinks about the car they drive.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really interesting.
But to your point, I love that idea that the American dream is too accessible.
I do think it is.
Because we've created a shortcut to it through debt.
Yeah.
Because now I can have that house and the car, but I don't really have it. The lender owns it all. The bank owns it.
Yeah. And so what happens is it becomes a nightmare. And so then what do we see? We see young people, well-meaning young people, on TikTok going viral, sitting in their car after a long day of work, feeling the absolute crush of debt and the crush of desire. We showed a clip recently on the show, George, a young lady sitting there, and she's like, I can't afford a house, I can't do this. And as I sit here today, it hits me that it's the crush of desire. We've concocted this idea that everybody's supposed to get out of college and have a really nice car and a really nice house and be able to afford going out 2 or 3 times a week. And that's desire, misplaced desire, but that'll crush you too pretty quickly when you feel like everybody else is doing it and I can't afford to do it. I'm a loser. Life sucks. Do you see that in this generation?
Oh, I mean, with social media now, before you didn't know anything except what your neighbor was doing. You knew what kind of car your neighbor was driving. Well, now with social media, I know what everyone in the world is doing constantly and what vacations they're taking. Even recently, I fell for this. I had an old coworker friend, and she was on vacation after vacation to this concert, And in my head, I'm going, wow, like, how does she afford this? And I know she's paying cash. So it was not a competition thing. But in your mind, you're going, wait, should I be doing more? Am I enough? Am I keeping up? Do I need to go do more?
This happened to you the other night. You sent me a DM on Instagram. You were
more jealousy.
You told me I got to get in on this poker game. You saw the bourbon stash.
FOMO.
And I got a DM from you that said, I got to get in on this. And what did I say?
You said you do.
And I'm going to get you there.
That's the proximity principle.
You got to learn how to play, but you got to learn how to play poker.
I can't promise you that.
Well, then there's no ticket to that event.
I will work on it.
You see what I'm saying? You got
No, that's fair.
But I mean, we all do this.
Yes.
The
There's
point
a natural inherent FOMO we have, and social media just makes that even worse.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Can I give some hope though to the person listening, watching?
Yeah.
Who might be that Gen Xer, who might be that person who's feeling the pinch?
Let's give them some hope.
Well, I think sometimes when you have too much emotion, math helps kind of bring some facts to it. And when you kind of get in the math weeds, some emotion helps bring you out of that. So this is largely an emotional thing, and there's a financial piece to it. So let me show you what a 45-year-old, if they are starting from nothing, they have $0 in their 401k, can I show you how they can still become a millionaire?
Yeah, let's do it.
So if you're 45, you start from $0 in a retirement, and you start investing, you've done the steps, you got out of debt, you have an emergency fund, you're ready to invest 15% of your income into retirement. Well, for the average household income, let's call it $72,000, that would be $900 a month you put into that retirement account. Well, from 45 to 67, if you just put $900 away every month, you never even get a raise, that would end up being $750 to upwards of $1 million, depending on your average rate of return.
And give us the range on that return, because some people lock in on that.
Oh, sure.
So we talking high-end 10%?
That's 8 to 11%.
So 8 to 11.
Yeah.
So anywhere from $750 to $1 million.
Which
starting
is
at age 45.
With nothing. If you've done nothing, you just heard about the Ramsey plan, you heard about this show, and you were starting at $0, you still have a chance to have $1 million at 67 years old in that one account.
Yeah.
And that's barring you didn't have a house that was paid for. And so it's very much possible to still have a sizable nest egg, to still retire with dignity.
Yeah.
Now, the later you start, the more you might have to compromise on your retirement dreams.
Right.
But don't tell me that you're just going to throw your hands up in the air and say it's not possible.
That's right. And let's point out, if you change your lifestyle and all of a sudden you start that $900 a month turns into $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month, now all of a sudden we've got some real gains.
Exactly.
And we can get to the $2 million that you said is ideal.
And here's the most amazing part. Looking at the numbers, you would think, well, I got to put away $1 million. No. Here's the numbers. You got to put away $237,000. That's your contributions, 45 to 67, $900 a month. What you actually put in from your paychecks was $237,000, which means $750,000 of that was growth. That was compound interest working its magic. And so that's what I love about this process is don't get hung up on the numbers of I can't save $1 million. You don't need to. What you need to do is learn to live on $900 less than you do now.
Yeah.
If you can do that, you can retire with dignity.
Yeah.
And that might take sacrifices. That might take getting out of debt and lowering your lifestyle.
Yeah. So much of this that we talk about, George, is mindset. They understand the math you just gave us. They can see it now. We've talked about living on less than you make. We've talked about getting rid of debt, all those things. In 30 seconds, that's all I have left with you. I want you to talk to these people. They're sitting there going, okay, George, it all makes sense. I get it. I just don't know if I can do it. They're just thinking about all the stuff they got to unravel, all that tangled up wire. What do you tell them to do first to just get this thing started so they can actually build momentum?
Well, for starters, in our millionaire study, we found that you don't have to be a prodigy financial investor to make this happen. We found that most of them were mediocre. They didn't even choose great funds. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you do just have to put money away. And when I say that, that means putting a sizable chunk, not just a match, not just 3%. When you get to that 15% number, it unlocks something, and you learn to live on the rest. It unlocks something magical, because that is now set it and forget it. And you gotta have this crock pot mentality instead of the microwave mentality of, you're right, you can't have it tomorrow, but if you're patient, 15 years from now, 17 years from now, it could be a very different life you're leading. You don't have to retire broke if you're just willing to get started. If you don't know, do your homework. Do I have a retirement plan through my employer? If you're self-employed, you still have tons of options. A simple IRA, a SEP IRA, a solo 401k. There is simply no excuse not to invest in the world that we live in today, and how the American economy is doing. The stock market is booming. Regardless of what you see on the headlines, the S&P 500 is just moving up and up and up.
That's
and
correct.
If you just get on that roller coaster and don't get off, you will retire with dignity.
Yeah, I love it. Question I think many people want to know, does corduroy make you feel richer?
I would say it gives me a undue confidence. Yeah, there's something about it. Feels regal, feels a little bit timeless, and I would say it helped me in this interview today.
Yeah, and I notice you have a big theme going on from the watch band to the coat to the glasses. Caramel Camel.
Thank you. I like that nickname.
That's what I see going on here. I love it.
Are you going for like a Kermit Green today? I think is my final question.
Well, we're talking money, we're talking wealth, and I thought, let's go ahead and give the color a bling.
Let's go green.
Although that's not bling green. Bling is actually shiny.
I don't think any
things.
guy in a sweater has ever said, I got the bling.
Yeah, well, that's true.
But you know what? You're not trying to impress anyone, Ken.
No, it's just that green looks good with my eyes. Apparently, my wife tells me. Hey, tell people about where they can find you, the website. You're on YouTube. You're crushing it there. The book is Breaking Free from Broke. A fantastic, fantastic read. Tell us all the things where we can connect and why we should connect.
Absolutely. At George Kamel. That's Kamel all over the social platforms.
Caramel Camel.
On YouTube as well. We got 3 episodes a week on there trying to bring some levity and simplicity to complex money topics, just like we do today, to help encourage people that they can build wealth, they can have money before they die, they can live the life they want if they're willing to sacrifice in the now. And Breaking Free from Broke, the book, I think is a great primer on all the things, on the debt system, how to get out of it, how to build wealth the right way. And that's my hope, is that I think this is possible for anyone, regardless of their age.
Yeah.
And if I can just give them a piece of hope today, I've done my job.
Launch your tech career today at betheltech.net/Ken Coleman.